If you go to some farming conferences, it's a lot of times like, if you're not making money on it, get rid of it. You know what I mean? 15 or 20 years ago, it was more about, we want to retain the lifestyle. That's what has made farming special through the generations. I like modeling to my kids that you are in charge of making your money and making your livelihood.
It's almost more of what we want to preserve than what we want to teach them, which is just to be engaged with life.
Well, this is very special for me because I tell you this, Ben, I've genuinely thought about this farm probably every single day since even though it was a brief time, just the sheer impact that you had on me and just being on the farm, and especially given all of my family stuff, it's pretty surreal coming back. So thank you for allowing us to visit, and thank you for joining me on this podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Good to see you.
So I guess to get started, just would love to talk more on your backstory, because I also remember whenever we first started, when I reached out through WWOOFing and just talking about, you know, your family lineage, but then also just we had similar life experiences with family essentially and whatnot. So yeah, I just want to, just curious what led you to Savage Mountain Farm.
Yeah, where do you begin, kind of? But I think I grew up, I was unaware of the agricultural heritage that my people, my ancestors, had passed down to each other, like every single generation until my generation. I was just unaware of that completely growing up. There was like something that happened in the 70s, you know, like, oh, I'm going to have to, is that okay?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, wasn't there like a water valve you said I needed to shut off before we left up here?
No. Nope, the other one is, the one that's turned off should be turned off.
All right, cool, thank you.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
No, this is totally fine.
Yeah. So, I remember in my like mid to late 20s meeting with my aunt, and my aunt had printed out this like sheet of all of the descendants, all of my ancestors, you know, from the very first Yoder, Joseph Yoder, who came over to Pennsylvania from Alsace, like before the Revolution, you know, like early 1700s or like mid 1700s or something. And literally every single, I don't remember how many generations it was, but every single generation from him down to my dad were farmers. Like they were of like Amish and Mennonite heritage and culture, and so that's just what they did. They were known as farmers, you know, and had worldwide reputations as farmers, and were invited to come live in countries because of their farming abilities and all this, you know. And my dad grew up on the farm too, just like literally every person above him in the patrilineal line. And every single one of his siblings got out of farming. There was just like something about farming in like the 70s, 80s that was like extra miserable. Or maybe it wasn't that it was so miserable, but that like all the conveniences of like, you know, like all the conveniences of like the expectation to watch TV in the evening, maybe the boxed food kind of revolution, the, you know, the processed foods, like food became cheaper and more abundant, but it was crappy. But it was like, if you grew up on a farm and lived like kind of a hard farm life, that was like kind of felt attractive, you know. And I think that during that time period, a lot of people just had a bad taste in their mouth, because for the first time, like, you know, less people were farming, and, you know, my dad would go home and have to do the milking, and while all of his other friends were playing, you know what I mean? And he left the farm and moved into town and started a family. And I grew up, and I grew up similar to, like, I think this is what you mean by the way our lives are a little parallel, is that, like, you know, I grew up a product of, like, I was the first one in that family line to be like basically ruined by the excesses of, like, American life, like TV. I was like not limited in my TV. I was not limited in my video games use. I ate processed foods, hot dogs and mac and cheese for dinner every night if I could, if I was lucky, That was like awesome. But just also realizing I felt like crap as a kid. I like had these headaches all the time, like as a kid. And we were always at these like, my parents were always trying to figure it out, taking me to doctors, things like that. Looking back, I realized just the food, the processed food, and the lack of engagement with the natural world, and also a little bit of a, almost like the low self-esteem that comes from not having skills passed down to you, Anyway, all of a sudden, like it's sometime in my mid to late 20s, when that dawned on me, that we had this rich cultural heritage and that all that information, all that cultural knowledge seemed like it was like going to be lost within one generation. I was just like, yeah, no way. Like, I'm not going to be the one that loses that heritage. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm passing that down. And I had to go through a big process because in some ways I was starting from scratch. I realize now that I started out with a little bit of a jump start than most people that didn't grow up around agriculture. Like I kind of realized I had absorbed a lot when it was time to like get out there and make it happen, But yeah, I just remember being like 14, 15 and having my dad and my uncles just be like, oh yeah, Ben, like go out and do whatever you want, just don't farm, And at that time you're thinking, yeah, no problem. That sounds awful, I don't want anything to do with that. And then sometime around the age of 27, 28, just having this epiphany that okay, no, this is like really important knowledge, really important culture. And it's important that we don't let these like dominant, outside mainstream forces just continue to like dull everything down,
Were you in Pennsylvania at that time?
I grew up this farm is in Pennsylvania, but we're like right on the Pennsylvania-Maryland line, and I grew up just south on the Maryland side of the line. And that's where like my dad's farm that he grew up in was. But there's a lot of moving back and forth. Like I'm in the county, even though this is like my dad grew up down in Garrett County in Maryland. Most of our grandfathers, great-grandfathers, great-great-grandfathers were like here in this county in Somerset County, PA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is like I'm definitely where like I can go. I think my roots go back to at least my great-great-great-grandfather in Somerset County, Pennsylvania. There was Lewis Yoder, and then I forget Lewis Yoder's father, but that he was probably the one that moved here from like more like central or eastern Pennsylvania. But every single Yoder from the first one, Joseph Yoder, that came here in the early 1700s has been in Pennsylvania. Yeah.
So then you were 28 when you had the epiphany. How'd you just go about your next steps?
And I was probably more like 26, but I started just like making myself available on farms. Like once I got interested, like there's a farm south of here, like an hour south of here, that you should definitely visit if you haven't come across them in your search, called Backbone Farm. And I like basically, just like I remember just being like showing up and saying, hey, I want to work here. I'll work for free, and I like stayed there for like 2 or 3 weeks my first time and had an awesome experience, and then came back and did like a whole season. And then in the winters I guess like got the farming bug, like I would go down any spare week that I had. Like even if I had just like 2 weeks, I was like finding a farm. Like I would go down and work on a farm in Florida that was like doing rotational grazing and stuff like that. But that's where I learned to butcher chickens and stuff like that. Slowly, I just accumulated a lot of kind of volunteer experiences, and then when I met Hannah, she was all in. We were all kind of both just sort of ready to so we just started the farm on rented ground. And she had done her own thing for years before she met me. She had worked on farms for money as hired help, but then she had started her own CSA, an urban CSA in Raleigh, North Carolina, before she met me, and that was a really successful CSA. And so we both kind of, when we got together and, we got married and we were renting a farm on the Garrett County side of the line. And that's how we started our farm business. So we started our kind of free choice, full diet CSA model. And we did that for 3 or 4 years. And after doing that for 3 or 4 years, we just CSA members that lived here, they owned this farm, but they didn't really farm it. They just leased it out to Amish folks for hay and corn, basically. And they offered to sell us this farm, which was awesome, and so we picked up everything, the whole farm down there, all of our livestock, all of our shiitake logs. I was laughing this.
All shiitake logs, yes.
I mean, I can't believe, I cannot believe, looking back at that year, just the other month, I was talking about how I can't believe that I was yeah, we're going to get every single shiitake log moved from that farm to this one. We had hundreds and hundreds of logs.
I remember just moving them just from one little area to that, all the way from there to here. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it was we were building this house. We had to, it didn't come with a house, so we had to build the house. While we moved, right? Yeah, and a bunch of family. I was calling on all cousins and uncles and whoever, old family friends that knew how to do stuff along the way. It was definitely a group effort, you know? So we were building this house. There was no fencing, all that fencing was not here. We were building all that, and yet somehow I was still yeah, we're gonna get all these shiitake logs. So we were just trudging these shiitake logs up the hill from the old farm, driving them over here, stacking them, and that was definitely the craziest year of my life.
Yeah, for the listeners that might not have ever seen shiitake logs in person or moved them, they are huge and heavy, and so and there's a lot of them too. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah. Well, then that just shows though you wanted it. You said, you had the farming bug, you just wanted it.
Right.
And then you also mentioned, full whole body, full choice CSA. Is that what you said?
Free choice, full diet.
Full diet. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, what that means is when we started the farm, we really wanted to be a farm where we kind of knew we were moving into this area, and it wasn't it's not some real, wealthy area. There's where there's a ton of demand for organic veggies or something like that. Things have changed in the 13 years since we moved here, but when we first started, there were a lot of people that were I don't know, Ben, if you're going to be able to make that happen here in this area. There's a lot of poverty, a lot of a lot of people just don't know, what I mean, the difference. People aren't actively going out of their way to seek, what we're doing at that time, especially. So we knew we had to do something that was a little bit more exciting, I think. And so we knew if we were going to try to sell veggies, we had to be able to sell meat too. And we needed to be able to sell eggs, and we needed to build this system that was okay, people can come to us and not have to go to the grocery store at least in the summer so they could, we were doing bread and all kinds we still do bread too, organic bread. But the idea was you can get everything you need, from the veggies to the fruits, mushrooms, like homestead type items like eggs and honey and syrup, and then all the meats. So we kind of like went big from the beginning in an effort to, and also just this is an area with like a lot of winter, a lot of snow, and it was important to us that we be full-time farmers. Like I could not do the struggle that a lot of people do of like trying to do something like this while they had a full-time job,
I'm pretty sure I saw recently, I think it's 83% of farmers
Yeah.
have an off the farm job.
Yeah. And I just was like, no way, because a lot of the appeal for me was cultural as well, not just like, not just environmental, not just like human health, but also just like the family farm as like a cultural, social institution that seemed like it was dying, like I wanted to be like here working on the farm. I wanted my kids to grow up on the farm with mom and dad around all the time. I wanted them to see us working. I wanted them to pitch in. I wanted to be able to homeschool our kids, and I just felt like the only way we're going to do that is I'm not going to have an outside job, because that's just going to create a lot of strain, and that's just not the family life that we had envisioned. So we were really determined to make it work full time.
Was it, whenever starting out, was it just you and Hannah just going all out and doing it?
Yeah. Well, we didn't have kids then, so it was like we were able, and we were 13 years younger too. So it was like we were able. There was nothing holding us back from just being out there from 6:30 a.m. till 9 at night. You know what I mean? Just like going at it. And we always had help too. Like from the beginning, we advertised for like WWOOFing and summer long internships and stuff. But it was, Hannah and I we were definitely just like going at it completely. And then as you have kids, that kind of changes, and you have to, we've gone through phases in our farm life where we've like leaned really hard on our help, and even times when we had way more help than we do now, because things are mellowing out a little bit now that the kids are getting a little older and stuff, But so we knew it's like you can't really, in an area with such a short growing season, it was like, I don't know how we can really, we have to sell meat, because we have to have something that we can sell all winter, and something that'll keep us busy all winter and keep income streams coming through the winter. So that was another reason for going like the full diet route.
What animals did you start with?
We started out with we started out on year one doing everything that we're still doing today. Like we never, I mean, for better or for worse, we never like slowly introduced things as we went. Like on our first year on the farm, we had produce, mushrooms, chickens, turkeys, rabbits, sheep, pigs, and cattle.
Oh my God.
Like year one. Yeah, it's pretty funny looking back. We had because we had this we were started advertising our CSA like the winter before we even began. And I remember this group of people from a church or something, they contacted us, said, hey, a number of our members of the church want to come out and we're interested in joining this CSA that we saw an advertisement for. And we want to come out and check it out before we join. Can we come as a group and see what you're going to do and see if we want to sign up? And we were like, yeah, sure. And they showed up. We had nothing. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be this is our veggie field. We're going to have pigs over here. And I rattled off everything. And I remember them just being like, you're going to do all that before next spring, I was like, oh yeah, definitely. And they were like all of them signed up. We laughed. We were looking back, we're I can't believe they we're like, oh yeah, if we were there, we would have thought, man, these kids don't know what the heck they're getting into, But yeah, we started out just doing literally everything. And it was on a much smaller scale now. Basically all the different enterprises have grown from there. But yeah, there's nothing, I can't think of anything that we're doing on the farm that we didn't start out doing from year one, except for the fruit orchard, I guess, because when we were on the rented ground, we didn't see the sense in planting fruit orchards, like the trees, you know.
Just because they take much longer?
Yeah, it was like they're a long-term investment,
Yeah.
you know. So, but once we moved here and owned the land, like that very first year, we planted like a ton of fruit trees. So that's like the one thing that like we kind of introduced later on.
Whenever you planted those, when did you expect to fully get your first harvest?
Like 3 to 4 years. And I think it was like year 4 or 5 that we had like a really good, awesome harvest.
Because one time, the reason why I brought that up was, I brought this up on previous podcasts. On Twitter, someone posted that she bought potatoes to grow thinking that it was going to be done the next day. And that had literally 330,000 likes. And then
Yeah.
I was reading the comments. Some of them asked, yeah, I didn't realize blueberries take a couple years. And so that's why I was like, people probably don't realize if you plant an orchard tree,
Yeah.
that's not happening the next year or the next year.
Yeah, no, and I was even planting, I was planting older trees. I bought like the oldest that you can get, basically, that were like already like 2 to 3 years old, and planting them, and then it was still 3 to 4 years. But you know, the fruit orchard is so hit or miss. It's like, we don't count on having a fruit harvest from the trees because every year there's just a frost at the wrong time, you know, or something, or, you know, so they're kind of just like a bonus, but it's kind of still rounds out the farm. And when we have a ton, it's cool for the CSA to have that variety. And when we have just some, we eat them or can them ourselves, and it's fun. And the kids love going out there and picking the peaches and stuff. Some of the stuff I see, that's one of the things about, like, I think that's really important to hold on to with this small farm kind of movement, people interested in keeping it alive, is I really think it's important that we try to keep ourselves out of the real capitalist mindset about agriculture. I know you have to survive, you have to make sure the finances in general fit, but there's so much that we do here that I just think of as like homeschool curriculum costs.
Like
You know?
what? Because I'd love to talk on that.
Well, the bees, for instance, you know, it's like the kid, like, you know, the bees are just like a money sink, you know, but it's like, unless you're going to go big on bees, you're not going to make any money on bees and honey. But the kids love it, and the kids love going out there, and they love we bought them all little suits, you know what I mean? And we go out there and we open up the bees, and the kids just lose their minds, you know, looking at these, at the frames and trying to find the queen and stuff, and running the smoker. And it's, you know, it's pollinating, it's doing a lot of good work at the same time, but also it's just like, I kind of joke, it's like I don't pay for my kids to go to a private school, and you know, for the most part, it's just like, I see it as just like homeschool cost, you know what I mean? And I think some of the, you know, in some ways the farm, you know, we have to be able to enjoy ourselves and enjoy what we're doing. I think a lot of farms end up failing and going down the wrong road when they start crunching numbers too much, you know.
It's interesting you brought that up, because I was reading today Unsettling of America by Wendell Berry.
Oh yeah.
And he was just talking how, I wish I could have like the actual passage. It's essentially that, to where the whole culture aspect of agriculture and just modern society, to where you lose just what it means to be a farmer and having a farm, and everything that you just described is just entirely lost.
Right.
Because you're so focused on the money, and just, you're kind of in that loop. And that's why it's so tough in modern society as, say, a commodity crop farmer is, they're just in that system. A lot of them might do well, and that's kind of, they're just part of the game and they're enjoying that. But then there's a large section of these farmers that they are just sucked in that, and feels like it's nearly impossible to get out.
Right.
And then years go by. Yeah, it's a very tough problem.
Yeah, and I also think that people, with this new movement, of young people getting into farming, I just have really noticed a shift in the last, when I was getting into it in the 50s, and when I was like 15 or 20 years ago, there just seemed to be a much more movement that it was more about we want to retain the lifestyle. You know what I mean? And it just seems like there's a big emphasis now on making it a lucrative career or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's what has made farming special through the generations is a little bit of a subsistence aspect to it and a little bit of a quality of life issue, and if you go to some farming conferences, it's a lot of times if you're not making money on it, get rid of it. You know what I mean? Because that kind of mentality, I guess, kind of rubs me the wrong way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have things that we offer to the CSA that we really probably don't make money on, or many years just kind of lose money more often than not because it's just kind of a tough crop to make happen. But the qualitative value of it, the way customers can get excited when this crop that usually doesn't work out very well or you don't often have a lot of, there's a bumper crop one year, or just the kids enjoying certain things that are a little bit unprofitable. That's really worth something. You know what I mean? I want my kids first and foremost to have enjoyed growing up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And growing up on the farm. That is going to cinch the survival of the farm more than whether you ran a profitable operation. If your kids enjoyed growing up here and they love it and they're going to keep going, more than if it was a successful business venture. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know why I got off on all that.
No, this is
tangent,
great. Henry, I have a question for you. Do you want to say anything or no?
Come show your grabber. Come show your grabber.
Here,
Show
come here real
Ryan
quick.
what you got there.
Yeah. Well, because I just wanted to ask you about what do you think of being on a farm?
Good.
You like it?
Yeah.
What do you like about it?
I like that.
Honeybees.
Yeah, that we have honeybees. And that we have pigs.
You like pigs?
Mhm.
What do you like about them?
Because they're messy.
What else do you like about being here? Do you like being outside a lot?
Yeah, and finding bones.
Finding bones.
Yeah.
He will often come home to a pile of old bones from definitely from before we moved here, like a cow skull or something. He'll excavate out of the woods and bring to the front porch. You also enjoy moving the cattle. I haven't really done it as much this year, but you really enjoyed helping move the cattle.
I like doing science and making stuff.
Oh, well, yeah. What is this? Did you make this?
Yeah.
Oh, dang. What is this?
It's a grabber.
Can you show me? How does it work?
You've got to crank this little hand in the back, and then
He made this?
Well, he gets these little. It's part of the homeschool thing. He gets these little kits once a month.
It's
And
TV
they
service.
come with instructions that don't have words. It's
Yeah.
all picture instructions on how to assemble it.
It's
Very cool.
TV service, and you've just got to pull it out, and then this close.
See, this is what's so cool because most kids, instead of this, would have just some big screen in front of their face the whole time. That's why. This is another reason why I wanted to talk about all this. It's just the whole raising your children in this society is just so challenging.
Mm-hmm. That is one thing. That's another reason, that that is as much a reason that we do what we do as whatever the health or the environmental or the political implications of what we do, it to me has always been like secondary to the family, the importance of the family aspect. I think that this kind of lifestyle breeds healthy, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually people, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I'm extremely worried about the state of now don't be too rotten now. The state of kids today, and it's not their fault, it's just like
it's a byproduct of just the system.
Yeah, well, and it's like so dumb too. It's like finally just like I think 3 days ago I read this thing about the this new study shows that like definitely the negative side effects of letting kids use smartphones and devices before they're 13, and it's just like how was that not obvious to anybody? But now they're like, yeah, we're highly recommending you don't let your kids even have a smartphone at least until they're 13. And it's just like, wow, man, it's too late, for a lot of kids. And I'm just like so glad we dodged that bullet, because our kids are like really, they love if you take a picture of something, they got to see the picture you just took. And they'll love scrolling through the pictures that you've taken, And it's just like anybody. It's like all of a sudden you're like, hey, okay, you've been looking at the pictures a little too long. But for the most part, they don't have any interest in it, you know. And Rosie especially, she's 8, and she's like already like, I think we've thoroughly convinced them of the negative impacts of things like that. And that's what we love about living in this area too, and being like the small farm culture is still kind of alive and well. Like you can still find, don't touch any of that, okay? You can still find parents who don't let their kids, where it's still very normal that the kids aren't messing with that kind of thing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, definitely.
So we really appreciate that.
I'll tell you when this.
Henry, I have one more question for you, Henry. Can you come here real quick?
Yeah.
Do you like eating a lot of the food that you have here?
Yeah.
What's some of your favorite? Does he have like a favorite meal from the farm?
You're asking our pickiest eater for sure.
Soup.
Soup.
And hot dogs.
Hot dogs.
And meat.
There's a lot that here. There's so much good. I remember having so much good soup here too.
He makes his own. He makes tomato soup that Hannah will get him started, but he can make it from scratch, and that's like his favorite soup. And he loves. You'll come down. He'll take. We sell raw dairy stuff through a neighboring farm. We don't do dairy.
Yeah, because is it still the raw chocolate milk too?
Yeah, he offers raw chocolate milk.
That's still to this day the best chocolate milk I've ever had. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So Henry, he'll like out of the blue, like we've come downstairs from being upstairs, and he'll have taken some of that cream, and he's like in the middle of making his own whipped cream for some like cake thing. Yeah. Like he takes the KitchenAid, he sets it all up, he pours the cream, he turns it on, he knows right when to, and just totally makes his own whipped cream out of,
Fun.
That's fun. So awesome.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to bring that up too, because I remember growing up and we ate dinner at the table, but I'm trying to remember when it might have just been when my brother left for college, and essentially after that we never ate at the dinner table. And then as time got just went by, we started eating together, but it was in front of a TV, and just we watched TV and whatnot. And then I always remember when I came here for dinner, it's always eating at the dinner table with you all in the family. And I vividly remember the very first day of that, because it's just something that I forgot used to exist so much, and how much I had missed it too. That's another thing too, is how much I've missed all of that. And that's just another thing I like about farming and ranching, is from a family aspect. I don't know, it was just so welcoming for me.
Right.
and a time to where I desperately needed that. And yeah, that's just incredible.
Yeah. No, that's one of those little things we're trying to keep alive too, you know. Oh, good. There's Hannah, our food person. There, you can sit here. Henry's having a blast being interviewed.
Yeah, I was just asking him just about his experience and his favorite food, being soup and hot dogs. And meat.
And meat.
So for you, Hannah, because we're talking about his backstory too, and just leading up to, just the farm now. Just love to hear about your, I guess, backstory too, and because he briefly mentioned about the CSA that you were leading in Raleigh.
Hey, Henry.
And so I was just curious to, just hear on. Did you grow up on a farm? I just realized I don't even remember asking you that when I was here a couple years ago.
No, I grew up right in the middle of downtown Raleigh, so it's pretty urban. Although it was sort of a ghost town at the time.
Really?
We always had a garden, though. Yeah.
What led you to, I guess, essentially to that CSA that you had before meeting Ben, and then, going to out here and doing all of this?
Well, it was really like a pretty random discovery for me. Growing up in Raleigh, there really wasn't even any farmland nearby. Like, it wasn't part of my consciousness. We didn't like drive anywhere on a regular basis where we were passing farms, my whole life was like in a pretty small radius there. But I did, like I said, we always had a garden and I always loved gardening. I would help my dad, and like we had an herb garden and a vegetable garden every summer. And I always loved picking fresh vegetables and like eating them right out of the garden, and loved the morning hours being out there, just digging around and working with plants. But yeah, then in high school, I grew up basically just like assuming that after high school you go to college, but I couldn't really think of anything that I was interested in studying in college. But I was like, well, environmental science is like the most interesting subject to me, but I can't remember any facts. But I was just like flipping through my environmental science textbook in 11th grade. And there was like this page and a half on sustainable agriculture. And I read that and I was like, that's what I want to do. I guess probably my most farming experience growing up was when we went to visit one of my mom's high school friends up in Maine a couple times. She had she was a forester, but she had a homestead. She had draft horses and a really big garden. It was like the first time I ever picked corn. I was like just amazed at like that's where corn came from, and that's how corn grew, just like off the side of this big piece of grass. And I would get up and I always woke up early my whole life, so I'd be the first one up, along with the woman whose place it was, and she'd send me out to collect the chicken eggs, and then we'd cook breakfast, and I just loved it. Like, that's one of my best favorite memories from growing up, was the 2 or 3 times we visited her. So yeah, I think when I read that in the textbook, it kind of reminded me of that experience, as a child. And so then I just started trying to learn as much about it as I could. I got a job the summer I graduated from high school. I got the only farming job I could find, which was for my brother's friend's dad, was a researcher at NC State University. He researched soybeans. So I spent a very hot summer hoeing and hand pollinating soybean flowers.
Hand pollinating?
Yeah, because they were. It was like not genetic engineering, but it was, selective breeding that they were doing to try to come up with like a drought resistant blah 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 soybean to save the world and whatnot. So that was my first experience of agriculture, which, you know, later when I worked on like small diversified vegetable farms and stuff, I kind of thought that experience, you know, wasn't the real thing. But looking back, it was a good experience in that, you know, it showed me that I still liked that type of work even after doing the most boring incarnation of it that you could possibly find. So anyway, after that, I went to school, to college for like an independently designed major in sustainable agriculture. And I interned on a farm, I had like a school internship, I guess it's called, that freshman year of college on a little local farm near App State where I went to school. And then I stayed on there through the summer. I lived there and worked there. And I worked there kind of off and on throughout the rest of the time I was in college. But then, so yeah, when I was a junior in college, I dropped out. And I don't know how much detail. This is a lot of detail.
No, this is. I always like hearing these backstories. I mean, that's why I like sharing all that. There's no one path that has that led to all this.
Yeah. Well, I was starting to feel like, okay, I could be learning a lot more about farming and getting paid by going and working on farms. You know, like this whole college path to farming just wasn't feeling quite right at that point. So I left and got jobs working back closer to home in North Carolina, in Central Carolina. I think actually Carborough Farmers Market's one of like the oldest growers only farmers markets, probably on the East Coast. So I worked for farms in that area around Carborough for a couple years. And then, I moved home like to Raleigh, to the city, thinking that, you know, myself and my business partner had this idea to use unutilized urban spaces to produce food. So and this was in, I guess, like 2009, 9 or 10. So yeah, we asked some people we knew and people we had met if we could use, like, just some of them were just little yards. Others, there was somebody who lived a little bit farther outside of town who had like an acre that they let us use. And the whole idea initially was to bike between locations and have a bike CSA, which we did. We distributed CSA boxes with bikes and trailers, which was really hard work, almost harder than growing the food. The annoying thing, though, was that going between locations to actually like work, you know, to take care of the produce was a challenge, because we would need to like haul our little walk behind tiller or just our tools, you know. So we ended up driving more than we had wanted, more than we had envisioned. But
was it difficult trying to, well, I guess, what was it like trying to obtain just customers for the CSA? Because I would be curious to hear, did it do well because finally some of the locals were like, finally I can have actual local food, or just were they so disconnected they just didn't care and just would go to the grocery store?
I mean, I think we managed to find enough of the people who were interested that it was a success on its scale. You know, it was very small scale. I think there's a larger project now in Raleigh that's almost the exact same thing. They took like unused urban lots. It seems to be doing okay, but it's also nonprofit. But yeah, there were definitely people. There were people who were like really excited to let us use their yard, and there were people who were really excited to get this food. Everybody and their brother asked us to like help them start up a farmer's market. We're like, we only have so much produce, and we only can like go to farmer's markets so many days of the week. But it was really kind of like before local food really took off like in the mainstream, you know.
Yeah.
But there were people who were excited about it.
Even just
And
hearing
really
that phrase.
supportive.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna, even hearing the phrase, just like the local food. That's how it used to be, and it's just only kind of like Ben. Whenever you're saying that you didn't want to be the generation to where it just stopped the lineage. It only takes 1 to 2 generations to where now we have to bring that back, and it's just crazy because before
Right.
that, that's how it always was.
Right, all food was local because there wasn't like refrigerated trucking and
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
global trade agreements.
We truly don't like. I love how we're using a spatula as a microphone.
I do that all the time too, so it's great. I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah. It's really strange, you know. It's like I think we have this idea. It's like, oh yeah, things change all the time through the generations, but it's really like things do change, but it's the last generation or two has been like really crazy
rate
change,
is
like,
exponential.
and it's not. Yeah, it's been changed kind of for the worse, in my opinion. Change that kind of is really dulling our senses, dulling our brains, and yeah, pretty worrisome.
I'm
Rosie,
curious.
do you want to come over here? Do you remember Ryan? You remember Ryan?
No.
Want to say hi? You don't remember Ryan? You're the oldest.
No.
Really? He woofed here for like 3 months a few years ago. You would have been probably like 6 years old.
Time flies.
Do you like being here on a farm?
Yeah.
What do you like about it?
Everything.
Everything. You like being outside all the time? Yeah.
What's your favorite? So you want to tell Ryan what your favorite like jobs around the farm, or what the farm enterprises we do that you like the most?
Probably the sheep.
What about the sheep you like?
I just like to watch them run.
They are fun to
What do you
watch.
like to do with the sheep in the winter time?
Feed them and give them treats.
And check for babies.
And take care of the babies. Yeah. So the winter time is when we bring the sheep into the barn. Like we do our lambing in like January, and we bring all the sheep into the barn, and then they start just like giving birth, like one right after the other.
Yeah.
And that is an exciting time for Rosie.
She gets up early, runs to the barn, and comes back and reports if there are any new babies.
Yeah, she gets dressed in the dead of winter and heads out there first thing to see if there's any new babies, huh? And then, even more, if there's a baby that needs bottle fed, that's almost like good news to Rosie, because she gets to
That's where you'll find her.
Lands in the house.
she gets to bottle feed a sheep for the next like month, or until we get rid of it.
That's funny.
Or until Saturday.
Yeah, well, we've gotten in the habit of just taking bottle babies to the sale right away, huh?
What's some of the food that you like eating from the farm?
Probably maple sausage and breakfast links. Oh, and bacon.
You like that too, Henry?
Oh yeah, Rosie loves bacon.
The fattier, the better.
Yeah, here was the first time I ever tried jowl bacon. Nah.
Okay.
Christian, he had that a couple days ago for the first time too.
At
That-
Wildem?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
I made some today and there's really nothing like it.
Yeah.
It's very good.
The way it
Nice.
cooks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious for you, Hannah, because we were talking about homeschooling and all of that too. I'd just love to hear from your perspective of, what made you want to do that, and then just how has that experience been from your perspective?
Well, how did we decide we wanted to do that? That was just a decision we made together. I think, Ben had a more negative experience than I did in public school. Although when I started reflecting, I was like, I didn't really learn anything that I remember, and I just sort of started, it was like, and I had a lot of really great teachers and stuff. Like, I don't say any of this to, like,
Yeah.
discount their, passion and effort and good intentions. But, like, I just started to feel like, okay, like, what I really got out of school was the idea that school is necessary, like, I felt we had decided to homeschool our kids, and I felt like excited about the positive things about that. But there was this part of me that was still like, oh, but you can't do it right. And, like, what about this experience that you got to have in school, and that experience, and opportunities and all that stuff. And, but yeah, the more I thought about that, the more I started to feel like, it was just like fear, that most of school, it's like a very competitive environment, where, you're competing to be like the best, get the best grades, get into the best college, get the best career, make the most money. And, like, that's not really what I'm interested in teaching my kids how to do. If they want to pursue that path, then they're free to. But I just feel like what they can learn here, like the real life skills and what they can learn by observing nature, and, like, learning to work, hopefully. Got to work on that. It's hard to know, like, what age, like, you should do what, but or have them doing what. But yeah, I just started feeling like so much of that is so much more valuable. And as long as, and especially for Ben, like, I think school really squashed his, like, desire to learn. Or I don't know, maybe it squashed my desire to learn.
And that definitely
it
happens.
Just sort of, like, dumbed him down. But,
yeah,
like,
definitely.
I have this, like, resistance to wanting to learn new things. Like, it sounds exhausting to me, and I don't really like reading. And yeah, I don't know, I just started thinking, like, wait, what am I so attached to about, like, school? Like, what do I think is so important that they can't miss, And I see my kids, like, now that we're a few years in, like, Rosie loves nothing more than reading. And Henry's, like, so curious about nature. Like, he could just watch bugs for hours. He loves fishing. So the fact that they can, like, really dive into what they're interested in, especially at this young age, I think is great. And yeah, I just started realizing that as long as they can remain interested in learning, like, they can learn anything, so it's almost like it's almost more of what we want to preserve than what we want to teach them, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
Which is just to be engaged with life and to engage with, like, people of all ages and from, like, many different backgrounds. We have sort of a somewhat unique situation, I think, where kids get to interact with a lot of different people because of what we do. Between having people, come here from other countries to work for a few weeks at a time, and having, like, all different types of customers and stuff like that. So, yeah, and I think as they get older, I plan on really leaning into our community for help with, sort of tutoring them in different areas, and things like that. And yeah.
I love the way you said engage with life, because that's one thing before you were here was just talking how the difference with Henry showing the claw that he put together versus most kids now, to where they just have a screen in front of their face, and then whatever that has horrific, disastrous consequences, as we've seen. But then in terms of, like, the engagement of life, most people they're just so disengaged with everything. And then to me, that's why I say the root of all of our problems is our disconnection from our food. And that's why I'm glad to hear your perspective, because I hope more people have the same realization. Because I have my qualms with public education. It's very challenging because, like you said, I had a lot of awesome teachers, but overall, the public system that I had was pretty crappy, and it was a lot of wasted time.
Yeah.
I don't remember most stuff because a lot of the stuff I was taught was completely pointless. And so my North Star is having a ranch and wanting to do the very same thing that you all are doing. And so, thank you for sharing.
Crazy
Yeah.
thing is just about public school too is just like the insanity of the age segregation. Like,
Yeah.
I hope we look back on that one day and think, wow, that was a really stupid idea. Like,
Yeah.
you're basically throwing kids to the wolves and they create their own. Like, I want my kids to be a part of our culture, an intergenerational culture. And the way it is now, like, kids, that's why we have like youth culture, subcultures. Youth, like, they're just like thrown together, taken out of their culture, thrown together in an age group together, and then they just like create their own culture.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Except that the culture is like usually in some ways pretty dog eat dog. You know, the culture that a bunch of kids that are all the same age are going to create is not going to be the same culture that kind of is intergenerational and gets passed down through the generations. It still changes over time, but it's got a little bit more wisdom, hopefully, from being a little bit more intergenerational and over the course of time.
Yeah.
You know, and I think kids are really, their self-esteem and their sense of self-worth is also ruined by that, you know, that trying to fit into this just like really shallow youth culture, you know.
Yeah.
I need to.
Yeah, and you guys probably already talked about technology since you said you haven't been already talking about it, but that is one thing we are like very committed to. Like, I mean, we watch family movies and stuff sometimes and the occasional educational show, but like we don't do tablets,
Yeah, I was about to say,
computers,
that's way different than
smartphones, like even videos. And our kids, like, they can take an 8-10 hour car ride and like look out the window and play games and entertain themselves like when we were kids, you know. And yeah, they're just like still interested in stuff, you know. And yeah, it's really like gratifying to see that. Makes a big difference.
Well, one thing too with being on the farm too is just building for self-sovereignty too. I mean, it was just funny hearing Ben was saying how Henry was making his own whipped cream. You just found him just doing that. You don't really,
Yeah.
you don't hear that from most kids his age doing something like that.
Yeah.
And so even just having him being around all of that makes sense to where it eventually leads to you doing something like that at that age, because you're not just doled at a screen the whole time. Because it's crazy just traveling around and you'll be at a restaurant and then you just see kids as young as your youngest, and they have a screen, and all it is so you can just distract your kids so you can finally have a little peace as the parents now. Because, you know, I've seen this online too, to where I'll see people complaining about kids crying on a plane or something else, and it's just like, hand them a screen. People now know that if you hand kids a screen, it just dulls them.
Right.
And now that's just completely normal in our culture, and it's pretty sad. So that's why I like what you all are doing. I'm hoping that we continue, as more people wake up to our food and just everything, to where some of that is brought back.
Well, I think sovereignty too kind of extends to, like, you know, I like modeling to my kids that, like, you are in charge of making your money and making your livelihood, like with your own hands, like you doing honest labor. Instead of, like, I mean, there's nothing wrong. I understand our whole world is propped up by people that have 9-to-5s, you know what I mean? But it doesn't have to be that way. And, like, I think that's also something that's getting missing is, like, you feel like when you grow up, how are you gonna sell your labor versus, like, how are you gonna make your labor work for you? You know what I mean? And I think farming really, really makes that a lot easier, especially if you're doing it as a family. Like the idea that you're in charge of your day, like you don't have to surrender your day to like somebody else and like an employer, you know what I mean? Like you can be in charge of your day. You can have the autonomy as long as you've got the gumption and the motivation to make it happen. Like nobody can really touch that, you know, if you have the wherewithal to sort of make your own means in the world, you know what I mean? And just like learning these kind of skills, like learning how to grow your own mushrooms, learning how to tend cattle and sheep, you know, that all just like gives you the tools that you need to go on and be in charge of your day. Because I just see a lot of the unhappiness of the world too. I mean, on a certain level, it has to do with just like, you know, your day, 90% of the world wakes up and their day is not their own. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, absolutely.
And some people are fine with that. That's fine, you know, but I think there's a significant percentage of the population who are more inclined to being self-starters, self-actualizers. That are just kind of stuck.
Well, and that's why
selling their labor every day when, you know, and I want my kids to have the opportunity to like know how to go about that, because it's getting increasingly hard in this world to just make a small cottage level living. You know, it's like you used to be able to like be the town blacksmith. Not to be too nostalgic, but you know, and you make a living, that's becoming, or you could open up a restaurant, you know what I mean? Have the local diner in town. These days, it's like really hard to do that because of all the franchise competition, you know, and regulations and just what it takes to start up, the capital you need to start up, you know. So it extends a lot of things, but I think farming is just one of the things that really gives you those skills.
Well, especially gives you the big picture of life in the sense that not even just like the farming skills, but you think about like the veterinarian aspect, mechanic or electrician, carpentry, everything that goes into all of this. Because now as society's advanced and gone more hyper specialized to where now you call somebody for each one, you call a specific person. I mean, I'm that same way. I don't know how to do a lot of that stuff, but I'm slowly learning. But I mean, I'm 31 now, so I'm just kind of catching up for lost time. And I know most people in America are like that too. I'm curious now, for you've been in Hannah as husband, wife, parents, farmers, being on this land, and then been before talking with you on the podcast about the year I was here and how stressful that experience was. Like, how do you all just, you know, manage all that together through all that? Because it's a lot. And then even just going back to when you started the farm together and just all of that, how do you, I'm trying to even figure out how I can best phrase that. Like, how do you tackle that? Because there's so many things involved in all that. I mean, you're all on the farm, so yeah, I'm just curious to hear from that perspective if that's even a question that makes sense.
I think we just kind of tackle it as we go. You know?
Well, because that's just one thing that you hear with farming. It's just like, am I just sacrificing my whole life for it all just to grow food? And clearly that's not the case. So that's why I just would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to keep the farm in its proper place, you know. Like we were in danger of that at one time, of the farm continuing to grow naturally at a natural pace, like just allowing it to grow. And then we'd have another kid, and so then we'd be still doing everything that we were doing, but now we had a kid. And then the farm kept growing. Then we had another kid. And we never adjusted anything. It's like we kept trying, the farm kept growing, our family kept growing, and there's like literally only so many hours in a day, you know? And I think, it was important for us to go through a period of making sure that we drove the farm and that the farm didn't drive us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think Hannah and I have just, over the years, also just fallen into roles. You know what I mean? Like, and actually some of those roles have crossed, it's, you know, into more non-traditional ways from, from the past. Like, I do a lot. She does as much farm work as I do, and I do as much child care stuff as she does, I think, like these days.
And he's our secretary.
Yeah, and I'm the secretary / accountant / I'm the one that
He does the office
remembers
work.
that the kids have a dentist appointment
And makes the dentist appointment.
and makes the dentist appointment,
I don't keep calendars. That's one thing I love about what we do. Well, and what he does for me.
Yeah. But also, like, Hannah is just like a maniac out in the field, like if I can have like Hannah's help harvesting or weeding, it's like
I remember it.
awesome. It's like as good as like literally 5 workers,
Yep.
And so, but then, but that's just not always possible at this point in our life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're always sort of renegotiating that, not necessarily talking about it, but it's like, it's definitely like something that changes. I think that's part of why we've been able to do it. I think we're both naturally pretty flexible. Me being extremely flexible, but extremely bad with schedules. And yeah, we just like, we really have like a lot of complementary skills and traits, I think, that make it possible for us to like work together and be together most of the time and raise kids together and, do everything together and also like make decisions and, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it just
not
happens.
without tensions, but like we also have a sense of humor. I always think humor is one of like the biggest keys to.
It just kind of happens that I'm like a broad thinking person and she's a narrow focused
Like a
detail.
Yeah.
So that can drive each other crazy. We can drive each other nuts in that way, but it also works. Like that's what helps it work, because I can have this like big broad idea and I like plow through like a bull in a china shop to make it happen and get it started. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And get the ball rolling. And
I
then
pick up the broken
she
china.
comes behind and like makes it work, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and but she would probably never really get the ball rolling on a lot, like given her own devices, But I also would do like a really sloppy job at all the things I started if it weren't for her,
Yeah.
I think like the fact that we recognize that, that it's complementary and that, it, like you said, it can be annoying, but we recognize that it's like valuable, and so focusing on the value that the other person brings instead of what annoys you, about the way they go about things, it's helpful.
And then do you still have dinner together up there as a family every night, or try to?
Yeah, try to. Yeah, one thing that has changed since you were here is that we no longer have so many dinners with the crew.
Yeah.
We just got to a point where it felt like we needed that family dinner time as a family a lot more than
Yeah.
when the kids are little. It's like you can almost get away with that, but once the kids reach a certain age and once their personalities develop, and you might have some kids that are just like a little more introverted than others, you end up just kind of adjusting to that, and we have less meals with the crew than we used to, which really kind of pains me a little bit. I think that people, like you said, how, like I noted how you said how important that how much that impacted you the first night
yeah.
you realized that we all sat
I mean, I
down.
get teary-eyed just thinking about that.
Yeah.
Because it meant so much with just all my family stuff.
Yeah, right. And yeah, I definitely regret that, some people that come here don't quite have that same experience you had, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we also just have to make sure that our kids have that memory.
Well, that's why I even asked that, because it's just so it would be so difficult. That's just me thinking from my perspective. It's difficult trying to manage all of that. Because like you said, there's only so much time, and that you don't get more. And then you add more variables, via more children and other things.
Yeah.
And so how do you make sure of all of that? And I guess that might be a segue into faith too, because I'm assuming still faith is a big priority in your guys' life.
Yeah, I would say it's only growing,
Yeah.
especially as we put the farm in its right place,
'Cause
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that I just remember whenever I first reached out through WWOOFing, and that was one of the conversations we first had. Because at the time I was agnostic, but then sharing my family story and then yours, and it's interesting just with agriculture how that was one thing I noticed at the beginning, how most farmers and ranchers I would speak with were typically Christian, but if not, they would have some type of faith. And so I was like, there's got to be something to that, to where. And then I just remember being out here and then being in front of the house after the day's work, and again, I was still agnostic, but it still made me just really start thinking about just the connection to the land and seeing all the pieces of the puzzle being put together. I don't know where I'm really going with this outside of, I'm just curious. I don't even know how I can phrase this question.
How does it all tie into it?
Yeah, I guess how does it all tie in for you all from your perspective?
Yeah, well, I think, when Andy, because this is one thing we haven't talked about, one of the parallels, and maybe it's okay to talk about this on your podcast, but, I had lost my brother, you had lost your brother.
Yep.
And we both had that really, parallel experience.
Yep.
And I think that in many ways, even though I still, I've, considered myself a Christian at then, it was when my brother died that all of a sudden I could see the spiritual charge that was underlying everything in this world. And I could see also just like how temporary everything in this world was, and how important it was to, while you were here, set your sights higher. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so that, to set your sights on, okay, what is permanent? You know what I mean? Like everything here is temporary. What is permanent? Is there something permanent? To me, the answer is obviously yes, and just reaching for that, to reach for something more permanent, not just accept the temporariness of this world, sent me on a path that that has only increased our faith for sure, and I'd say that it has thankfully taken precedence over the farm. Like I can definitely see it with the farming lifestyle and the farming world in general. It can kind of become a thing that can take the place of religion, quote unquote, in people's lives because you feel so passionate about this cause, you know what I mean? And it can, and you put your all into it, and it defines you, who you are, and it gives you meaning and purpose in life. I think I could have been the kind of person that was in danger of allowing that to happen to me, to let it be like the primary thing of who I was, And I'm just really thankful that like God has revealed himself to me in my life enough that to know the dangers of that path, even though I still love what we do, you know what I mean? I still wouldn't want to do anything else, but I do it as it's not, it's as a means to an end and not the end in and of itself,
Yep.
We do it for the qualities, what I consider to be like, it's a good platform and to live out like the biblical values that we want to have as a family, which is basically everything that we have talked about with the kids and cultivating a sense of separateness from the world and a sense of independence from the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And strength that comes from somewhere other than worldly values and things like that, or yourself. Yeah, that's a big lesson, like yourself, like.
Well, can you elaborate on that?
Well, you can do this farm like for your own self, you know what I mean? Like this whole thing could just be like, in some ways, like it's like, oh yeah, Hannah and I needed, for our own self's sake, to do something with our life that was like against the grain or unique. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But to like have the humility, as long as we don't let the farm, be a reflection of just our own like egos or our own fears that will turn out to just be average people or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, as long as we don't allow the farm to do that, it's a great place to be,
Yeah.
and just really just allow it to continue to like cultivate humility. And the temporariness of it all helps with that too.
Yeah.
Like, we want to be like Ben and Hannah Yoder, children of God, not Ben and Hannah Yoder, farmers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's like the most important identity you can hang on to, is your identity as a child of God,
Yeah.
Well, and like you said, the strength. I think you said you get your strength from somewhere else. Like, I think when you're young and strong and farming and productive, like, it's so easy to have confidence in your own strength. But like, when a lot of that is taken from you, as it inevitably will be if you live to become old, I just see so many people like feel so lost at that point, especially maybe people who've like worked physical work.
Because it doesn't even have to be, because for me, it was mental for me, and that's like in terms of the strength, why
Sure.
for me leading back to Christ, and so that's why I really relate heavily to that. I guess my final question then, I mean, I know you guys have answered this a little bit through just talking, but what are some values and qualities and characteristics that you want your children to have, just growing up on a farm and homeschooling, just everything on this farm? What are, especially comparing that to, say, me, I grew up in the suburbs and then live in Austin, so it's obviously different.
Yeah, I think, a lot of it would be similar to, like that sense of autonomy, sense of personal agency, like independence, strength, self-reliance. And not, when I say self-reliance, I almost just mean community reliance. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean like self-made type thing, but like, yeah,
that's almost one of the most important things
Yeah.
really about doing this. Like, they're learning, they see people help each other, in this community. Like, we go help the neighbor load or unload hay if he needs it. If we need a tractor or a truck or a trailer, someone loans us one. I mean, people are really always helping each other. And I think like that's something that makes people feel just like so disconnected, like you were saying, is, people describe like the isolation they feel in an urban context from other people. I think that's like an extension of the family unit, it's the community, and that's been really like de-emphasized in our culture.
And I think it's by design. And that's also why I continue to tell people to go visit a farm or ranch, because most have never even done that. And then you start seeing, I don't know, to me, the wheels just start spinning, and then a lot of these things just come back to me. To me, they come back naturally. But I think that's why our food system's constantly under attack from all kinds of fronts, is to take away the autonomy from us, kind of going back to the homeschooling versus public education. That's why my problems with public education is a lot of that is, to me, by design to make you just dumb down, to not critically think for yourself, no autonomy at all. So yeah, that's why I always like to end on just shaking the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, and I think the community thing is one of the most important things. Like, just playing a small part in keeping like the aspect of community alive, like small scale rural communities. Like, the backbone of that has always been centered around agriculture and helping people, which keeps everybody really tied to the land, keeps everybody really humble, you know, because it's like even today among not even just the Amish and Mennonite farmers, but just all the farmers, you know, like they're all like they basically jump from farm to farm, helping each other load silos, unload and load hay. They're always like letting each other just like like everybody's got equipment sitting at other people's farms all the time. You know what I mean? That's their own, and you know what I mean? And I think that makes for really healthy individuals. And that's something that I really want for my children. You know what I mean?
Well, perfect. Thank you so much. This was awesome.
We should see if Eric will sit down here.
Yeah.
Probably not.
I saw.
He won't do it. Hey, Eric, you want to sit down a second, buddy?
I think he went way out in the woods.
He's way out in the woods.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, thank you all. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So you took me to the party, you got me alone, so you wanna feel good and you feel like